DanDaDan Turbo Granny Art. After her boyfriend demanded her to lend him money in exchange for a date, Momo Ayase becomes vexed and gets into a fight with him after the latter brings up ideas of having sex with her at a hotel, which results in the two breaking up. She then meets with her friends after becoming heartbroken, but is asked by one of them on what she liked about her former boyfriend. Momo states that the only reason was because he looked like Ken Takakura, since she has a liking for the male actor, which her friends found ridiculous. While walking the halls feeling depressed, Momo looks to see a male student being bullied in a class and chooses to come to his aid by sitting in front of his desk while glaring at the bullies. After they cease their assault on him, Momo leaves but is caught up by the male student she was defending. The male student then passionately talks to her about the topic of UAPs, unidentified aerial phenomena, but only ends up causing Momo to become annoyed by his constant ranting. Though she did not intend to become friends with him, Momo apologizes after seeing how she made him feel bad and tells him that she only believes in ghosts rather than aliens. Upon telling him this, Momo angrily sees the male student smirking at her with a disapproval that ghosts exist, and justifies that her grandmother is a psychic. The two then get into an argument on their beliefs, and end up challenging each other on whether UFOs or ghosts are real. Late at night, Momo and the male student arrive at each other's designated areas to prove who is right. Momo enters the Nagi hospital, where the male student believes that UFOs are suspected to appear, while the male student arrives at a tunnel where Momo believes that a ghost is suspected to appear. While conversing through the phone, Momo talks about her past, on how she used to hate her grandmother for causing her to get bullied by the boys at her school, including by a boy she liked, for having to perform a spell her relative instructed her to do, but would soon come to realize that her grandmother and her job as a medium was special to her, which is the very reason why she believes in ghosts. Shortly after, the male student finds himself face to face with an elderly spirit and runs away in panic, while refusing to believe that what he saw was an actual ghost he encountered. Momo tries to warn him that the ghost is known as the Turbo Granny, and that if he gets caught by it, he will be cursed. She then hears the male student screaming over the phone after the ghost manages to catch up to him on his bike and prepares to head out to his direction to help. However, after looking up in front of her, Momo becomes frightened to see three mysterious figures out in the hallway. She turns around to run away but is stripped and captured by them. The three figures introduce themselves as the Serpo, an alien species who wishes to acquire reproductive functions similar to the human race. One of the Serpo then unveils a robotic device from their crotchal region, with the intent on extracting her womb and bananas through sex. Momo tries to break free from her restraints, but is subdued after the Serpo uses psychokinesis to make her feel aroused. Before they could go any further, the ringing on Momo's phone catches the Serpo's attention and causes the aliens to become surprised after the Turbo Granny ghost emerges out from it and bites off the crotch device on the Serpo. Momo then sees that the ghost is actually the male student being possessed. The Serpo refuses to allow the possessed human to intrude and transforms, but find themselves unable to react on time to its speed. After using their psychokinesis to stop them, the male student tells them that he will give them whatever they want, and expresses how he always wanted to meet aliens, since he never had any friends who acknowledged him until he met Momo, and begs them not to hurt her. The Serpo overpowers him with their psychokinesis, and continues to stimulate Momo's arousal, which causes her to remember her grandmother's instructions on needing to perform the spell she told the male student earlier, in order to release her Q. As a result of the Serpo overstimulating her brain, Momo manages to release her psychic powers to escape from her restraints, and realizes that her grandmother is a real psychic. She then sends the Serpo flying with a kick, causes part of the UFO to be destroyed, and manages to suppress the Turbo Granny, possessing the male student, who warns her that it has stolen his genitalia, and the only way he can be freed from its curse is if they confront it at the tunnel. After escaping the UFO's destruction, both Momo and the male student come to believe that both aliens and ghosts are real. Though she explains that she needs to stay with him in order to have the curse suppressed, the male student tells her that he will figure out some way to fix his mistake alone in order to not cause her any more trouble. Despite this, Momo insists on helping him, and suddenly becomes flustered after the male student makes a statement similar to Ken Takakura. After calming down to dismiss any false accusations in her head, Momo asks him what his name was and becomes speechless to hear that it's Ken Takakura. Refusing to accept his name being the same as the idol she admires, Momo tells Takakura that he can't speak it when in around her, and that she will start calling him Okarun, to which he finds himself having no choice but to accept. Since it was already morning, Momo invites Okarun over to her house to receive a change of clothes. After arriving, Momo shockingly witnesses Okarun on fire as he tries to walk through the torii gate, and uses her powers to throw him into the nearby river. She then realizes that the cause was a talisman attached to the gate that is meant to exorcise evil spirits, and removes it to allow Okarun to pass through. After changing clothes, Okarun becomes mad with the fact that his genitals are missing, only to be reminded by Momo that it was his fault after he wanted to talk to her at school. Okarun explains to her that, at the time, he didn't want to miss the opportunity to make a friend, and comes to believe that Momo could never be friends with him. After hearing this, Momo tells Okarun that his problem was that he unknowingly tries to distance himself from others, and that she is willing to talk about the paranormal with him. Okarun becomes a little teary-eyed after hearing Momo's words, but rudely responds, much to Momo's chagrin. The two then hear the sound of the doorbell. Not recognizing the chime, Momo believes that it is an evil spirit, since her house has two chimes for humans and evil spirits. Since the talisman was the thing that was protecting her home, Momo and Okarun go outside to put the talisman back on the torii gate. However, Momo and Okarun find that it is mysteriously night outside, there is a wall blocking the torii gate, and their way back inside the house, there is a harmful black mist that is causing them to bleed from their nose, and there is a large, hostile being. Okarun recognizes the being's appearance as the Flatwoods monster, and tells Momo that he might be able to fight the alien if she were to suppress the Turbo Granny's curse from his head. Momo goes through with Okarun's plan, and becomes amazed to see how powerful he has become after reacting fast to the alien's attack and biting off his fingers. However, she sees him starting to suffer as a result of moving at an inhuman speed, and uses her psychic powers to pull him towards her before the Flatwoods monster could crush him. While struggling to think of a way to defeat the alien, Momo notices that the Flatwoods monster is fighting similarly to a sumo wrestler, and believes that they could defeat him if they force him to touch the ground. Using her psychic powers, Momo suppresses Okarun's curse with her right hand to have him destroy the Flatwoods monster's right leg, and uses her left hand to pull the alien's body down, causing his right hand to disintegrate as a result. Though they manage to harm him, the Flatwoods monster grows an extra pair of legs to keep himself upright, and slams Momo into the wall blocking the torii gate. While trying to keep Okarun's curse suppressed, Momo is viciously beaten into the wall by the alien. Though she hears Okarun worrying for her, Momo reveals that she intentionally planned to have the Flatwoods monster beat her in order to create a crate in the wall, giving her enough space to put the talisman back to its original spot. She then pulls Okarun towards her and places the talisman back, resulting in the Flatwoods monster being incinerated and bringing them back to the real world. Momo becomes relieved that the conflict has ended, but suddenly faints in front of Okarun as he starts to turn into the Turbo Granny. During a broadcast, a psychic named Santa Dodoria gives a reading on a celebrity's profile, but is corrected each time. The psychic then takes a taxi home but decides to walk the rest of the way, since they believe that the driver might be in danger if he were to continue driving. Before the Turbo Granny possessed Okarun could devour Momo, Momo's grandmother arrives to put a stop to it. The evil spirit tries to attack the grandmother but is set ablaze. The grandmother reveals that she has placed a mystical barrier around her and has also set one up for the Turbo Granny. The Turbo Granny tells the grandmother that the barrier will not hold her for longer, but hears he respond back, saying that she plans on killing her. The grandmother then starts beating the Turbo Granny with her bat, and drops a charm nail to see to it that the evil spirit is killed. Later, Momo wakes up in her bed and walks down to find her grandmother watching television. Worrying that Okarun may be in trouble, since she is not around to suppress his curse, Momo asks her grandmother if she just so happened to find him, and becomes shocked to learn that she killed the evil spirit that was around earlier. Though she did not deny the mention of the evil spirit, Momo is reminded by her grandmother of the time she called her a fake spirit medium, and apologizes. Momo then rushes over to the shrine after her grandmother tells her that she placed the evil spirit there and sees that Okarun is still alive. Okarun becomes relieved to see that Momo is alive as well, but has the door slammed on him after Momo overacts. Momo's grandmother tells Momo that Okarun's curse will not activate as long as he stays inside the shrine, and adds that she lied about killing him since she wanted to tease a desperate Momo. After explaining the situation regarding her and Okarun and how she acquired psychic powers, Momo's grandmother tells Momo that the Turbo Granny has fused with the earthbound spirit of the tunnel she was secluded in, making her very powerful in the process, and that she does not want her to get involved with Okarun anymore. Despite her worry, Momo tells her grandmother that she wants to help Okarun, since that is what Ken Takakura would do in her situation. Momo's grandmother goes along with Momo's wishes, and explains that in order to defeat the Turbo Granny, she will have to train them tomorrow to beat the evil spirit in a game of tag, and try to lure her out of Shono City to weaken her. After Momo's grandmother leaves, Okarun apologizes to Momo for looking weak when facing the Flatwoods monster, and that he will try to do better next time. Momo responds back by telling Okarun that she thought that he did well in their fight against the alien, and tells him that she is okay if she has to save him next time. In the living room, Momo's grandmother watches a report on television about how the celebrity she performed clairvoyance on as Santa Dodoria has had his secrets come to light, revealing that the grandmother was right about everything she foretold. While in the middle of their training, Momo sees that Okarun has to desperately use the bathroom, but refuses to allow him, since it would mean that she would also have to be with him in order to suppress his curse at all times. She then explains to her grandmother that she is able to use her psychokinesis by grabbing onto the aura she sees, and also tells her that she was much stronger at the time her powers were awakened. After learning this, Momo's grandmother tells Momo to close her eyes to rely on using her sense of touch to suppress Okarun's curse. Momo attempts to do as she instructed, but unfortunately fails, as the Turbo Granny starts to take over Okarun's body. Being unable to hold it in anymore, Okarun rushes over to the bathroom and tries to outrun Momo and her grandmother as they try to stop him. While suppressing Okarun's curse while he is on the toilet, Momo hears her grandmother telling her that her full power may be lying dormant inside her and needs further training to be able to release it. After being told, Momo notices that her grandmother's nose is bleeding and becomes shocked to find the Turbo Granny inside the bathroom. The Turbo Granny tells Momo that she is only communicating with her through Okarun, and that she is able to kill whoever has laid eyes on Okarun thanks to the curse, such as her grandmother. Aware that she is training to take her down, the Turbo Granny demands to Momo that she come to the tunnel tonight or she will start randomly killing people. After the Turbo Granny makes her leave, Momo becomes able to communicate with her grandmother and Okarun again. Momo's grandmother then notices that she is bleeding and a talisman has been burnt, and asks Momo as to what happened. Before leaving for the tunnel, Momo's grandmother gives Momo and Okarun clothing that are capable of protecting them from evil spirits, and asks Momo to return back alive while embracing her. While taking the train to the tunnel, Momo becomes furious with the Turbo Granny for harming her grandmother, and swears to make her pay. Okarun and Momo enter the tunnel together and discuss their plan to defeat the Turbo Granny. Though Momo believes that fighting against the Turbo Granny might be easy compared to their battle with the aliens, the two become surprised to see an enlarged Turbo Granny blocking the entrance and the exits to the tunnel. Momo then attempts to attack the evil spirit with bats she manipulates, but sees the Turbo Granny destroy them with her mouth-shaped eyes. As a last resort, Momo has Okarun use his cursed powers. However, the Turbo Granny takes the curse back from Okarun by returning his genitals, leaving him powerless. As the Turbo Granny prepares to eat them from both sides, Momo, after remembering her grandmother's words, challenges the evil spirit to a game of tag to see if she is as fast as she claims. The Turbo Granny ceases her assault and accepts the challenge after being underestimated. The two then immediately try to escape after the Turbo Granny started counting to 10. However, Okarun sees Momo suddenly captured and the Turbo Granny counting strangely. Okarun yells at the Turbo Granny for cheating but hears her explain that she was not forbidden from counting to 10 in a certain way. Okarun then starts to panic after the Turbo Granny finishes counting down his 10 minutes. With no decisive plan to save Momo, Okarun attacks the Turbo Granny by latching his teeth onto her breast. The Turbo Granny, in a state of panic and annoyance, struggles with trying to get Okarun off of her due to the clothes he is wearing and resorts to fully possessing him. To put an end to the situation, the Turbo Granny gets herself ready to eat Momo. However, following her grandmother's lesson in using her sense of touch to use her powers, Momo squeezes the Turbo Granny's aura until she is completely sealed within Okarun. Okarun then releases Momo from her confinement after reverting back to normal. After succeeding in capturing the Turbo Granny, Momo and Okarun panic as the earthbound spirit comes after them to save the Turbo Granny. Momo and Okarun run for their lives as the earthbound spirit crab chases after them. Using the Turbo Granny's speed in his cursed state, Okarun carries Momo on his back and tries to outrun the earthbound spirit across town, which could only be seen by the duo and not the public. After Okarun tells Momo that he is almost at his limit running, Momo comes up with an idea and instructs Okarun to have the earthbound spirit crab follow him into an onsen. Knowing that crabs are vulnerable to boiling water, Momo uses her powers to pull down a pipe with flowing hot water and towards the earthbound spirit crab, resulting in it being slowed down and giving Momo and Okarun time to escape Shono City. However, the two find themselves ambushed by possessed citizens after the Turbo Granny and the earthbound spirit crab called upon the spirits from a nearby cemetery for assistance in trapping Momo and Okarun. The Turbo Granny then tells the duo that she and the earthbound spirit will not allow them to escape from Shono City. With no other option to escape the mob of possessed humans, Okarun enters his Turbo Granny form and carries Momo as he rushes through the crowd. The two then end up suffering from the turbo speed, which also results in Momo accidentally letting go of the Turbo Granny inside Okarun. After kicking them away, which knocks Okarun out cold, the Turbo Granny fuses herself with the earthbound spirit crab and gets herself ready to play cat and mouse with Momo. Though the Turbo Granny told her that she will give Momo a few minutes to run away, Momo responds back by saying that she will get away from her in 1 second after using her psychic powers to grab onto a moving train. The Turbo Granny catches up to Momo with confidence that she will not escape her, but soon comes to realize that she had been tricked into following Momo after the girl reveals that her grandmother had set up a trap on the railway that was leading to Kamikoshi City. Using her powers to restrain the Turbo Granny from escaping, Momo successfully manages to defeat the Turbo Granny-fused earthbound spirit crab the moment they made it to the trap. As she watches the exorcism of the Turbo Granny-fused earthbound spirit crab, Momo suddenly witnesses multiple schoolgirls emerging from the spirit and vanishing from the exorcism. After defeating the Turbo Granny, Momo, Okarun, and her grandmother revisits the tunnel where the Turbo Granny and the earthbound spirit crab previously resided to pay their respects. Momo then learns from her grandmother that the tunnel used to be the crime scene of multiple murders of young girls, and that the Turbo Granny came to the tunnel to console the spirits of the deceased girls since they were unable to pass on to the afterlife. Before making their leave, Momo's grandmother also explains to Momo the rules of coexistence between the dead and the living, and that she is glad that Momo did not get hurt. The three then celebrate their victory over Crab, which leads to Momo and her grandmother fighting over the food, and the grandmother harassing Okarun about wanting to see if he actually has any genitals. Okarun then says his goodbye to Momo as he prepares to go home, and gains a look of reassurance after Momo tells him that she will meet him again at school tomorrow. The next day at school, Okarun wonders in his head as to how he should say hello to Momo when he meets her again. He then becomes shocked to see Momo waiting outside, but thinks that she is waiting on someone else other than him. However, Momo approaches him and asks why it took him so long to arrive.